"Take off that coat before you suffocate," the woman in silver laughed, loud enough for every guest in the ballroom to hear. Camila Reyes tightened the black wool around her body and wished the marble floor would open beneath her heels. At 5'6", soft through the hips, full at the waist, and beautiful in ways she had spent years being taught to apologize for, Camila knew exactly why the room was staring. She was not a guest at the Belladonna Foundation Gala in Manhattan. She was the temporary seamstress hired to repair gowns no one else could save before the midnight auction. Her mother's medical bills were 3 months overdue. Her apartment radiator barely worked, and the agency had warned her that one complaint would end every future booking. So when Vanessa Vale, a famous model with a diamond smile and a voice sharpened for cruelty, pointed at Camila's oversized coat, Camila swallowed the shame and said nothing. Around them, crystal chandeliers burned like frozen stars, cameras flashed, and men who could purchase entire city blocks pretended not to notice. Then the ballroom doors opened. Conversation died before the first bodyguard crossed the threshold. Luca Moretti entered in a charcoal suit cut with military precision, 6 feet 3 inches of controlled danger and old power. At 38, he ruled the Moretti crime family from New York to Atlantic City, owned hotels, shipping companies, and enough secrets to make senators lower their voices. He was rich, feared, and almost impossible to read. Rumor said he had not trusted a woman since his fiancée sold his brother to a rival crew 5 years earlier. Tonight, he looked colder than the January rain streaking the windows, yet his gaze stopped the instant Vanessa tugged at Camila's coat. The fabric slipped from one shoulder. Beneath it, Camila wore a plain navy dress she had altered herself, modest and carefully fitted, but every curve she had tried to hide became visible under the white ballroom lights. A few guests smirked. Someone whispered that the agency should have sent a smaller woman. Camila felt heat crawl up her neck, but she bent to retrieve her sewing kit instead of giving them the tears they wanted. That was when a champagne tower trembled behind Vanessa. Camila saw the server's heel catch on a loose electrical cable, saw 20 crystal glasses tipping toward Luca Moretti, and moved before fear could stop her. She shoved him aside with both hands. The tower crashed where he had been standing, exploding across the marble in a glittering wave. His guards drew weapons, guests screamed, and Camila landed hard on one knee. Luca did not look at the broken glass. He looked at her. Up close, Camila saw the pale scar near his temple, the suspicion in his dark eyes, and something else that vanished too quickly to name. "You saw the cable?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but the entire ballroom listened. Camila nodded and tried to stand. Pain shot through her knee, and Luca's hand closed around her forearm before she fell. He released her at once, as though even his protection required permission. Vanessa laughed nervously and said Camila had caused the accident for attention. Luca turned his head by less than an inch. "What is her name?" he asked. No one answered. Not the agency manager, not the gala director, not the people who had mocked her while she repaired their $1,000 dresses. Camila lifted her chin. "Camila Reyes," she said, though her voice shook. Luca repeated it slowly, making the name sound less like an apology and more like a warning. Then he looked at the crowd. "Miss Reyes just prevented an incident that could have killed someone," he said. "Anyone who laughs again leaves my hotel." Silence fell so fast Camila could hear glass settling beneath the tables. Luca glanced at the torn hem of her navy dress, then at the coat she was pulling closed with trembling fingers. "Why are you hiding?" he asked. Camila met his eyes. "Because rooms like this punish women who take up space," she whispered. Luca said, "Not anymore, Camila." "Not anymore, Camila," Luca repeated, and this time the promise carried enough authority to make the gala director lower his eyes. Camila wanted to believe him, but women like her had learned that powerful men often mistook rescue for ownership. She gently pulled her arm from his hand and gathered the fallen contents of her sewing kit. "Thank you, Mr. Moretti, but I still have work to finish." Luca watched her kneel among the broken crystal, while guests stepped around her as if she were part of the mess. His jaw tightened. "The auction can wait." The gala director hurried forward, pale and sweating. "Mr. Moretti, the donors are expecting the presentation in 20 minutes. Luca did not look at him. "Then they can practice patience." With one sentence, he delayed a $10 million event, dismissed half the security team, and ordered the ballroom sealed until every camera recording had been reviewed. No one argued. Camila rose carefully, hiding the pain in her knee, and tried to walk toward the service corridor. She made it 3 steps before Luca noticed her limp. A doctor will examine that. It's a bruise. That was not a suggestion. Camila stopped and looked back. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. That does not give you the right to decide what happens to me. Several guards stared at the floor, clearly unaccustomed to anyone challenging Luca Moretti in public. For a moment his face became unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nodded. You're right. His voice softened only for her. May I have someone look at your knee? Camila blinked. No one in that room seemed more shocked than she was. Fine, she said, but only after I repair Mrs. Caldwell's gown. She has been waiting all evening. Luca glanced toward an elderly woman standing near the staircase in a torn emerald dress. Mrs. Caldwell had defended Camila earlier when the agency manager blamed her for a missing bracelet, though no one else had listened. Luca noticed the exchange between the two women. He noticed everything. 10 minutes later, Camila sat in a private dressing suite while a hotel physician wrapped her knee. The room smelled of roses and expensive perfume, and golden lamps cast a warm glow over racks of designer gowns. Luca stood near the window, keeping several feet between them. The cable was cut, he said. Camila's hands froze over the torn emerald fabric in her lap. Cut? Cleanly. Someone wanted that tower to fall. On you? Most likely. His expression did not change, but the guard beside him shifted uneasily. Camila remembered the server's frightened face and the loose wire curling across the floor. The server wasn't responsible, she said quickly. She looked terrified before it happened. Someone may have threatened her. Luca studied Camila as though kindness under pressure was a language he had forgotten how to speak. You almost broke your knee, and you're worried about the person who dropped 20 glasses on you. People make mistakes when they're scared. That sounded personal. Camila lowered her eyes and pushed the needle through green silk. Fear has made me accept things I should have walked away from. Luca noticed the faint mark circling her wrist when her sleeve slipped back. His gaze sharpened, but he did not ask about it. Instead, he crossed to the wardrobe and lifted the oversized black coat from a chair. Is this why you wear this? Camila's shoulders stiffened. It keeps people from looking. It does not. His words were blunt, but there was no mockery in them. It only tells them you expect to be judged. She gave a humorless laugh. That expectation has kept me from being surprised. Luca turned to the hotel's fashion director, who had been waiting silently by the door. Bring in every designer still in this building. Camila looked up. Why? Because your dress is torn. I can fix it myself. I know. His eyes dropped to the careful stitches she had already made in Mrs. Caldwell's gown. But tonight, you are not repairing anything else for people who did not bother to learn your name. Within minutes, 3 designers entered carrying garment bags. Vanessa followed them without permission, wearing a tight smile. Luca, surely you are not delaying the auction over a seamstress. Luca faced her. Miss Reyes. Vanessa's smile faltered. Excuse me? Her name is Miss Reyes. Use it. Camila felt something inside her chest shift, something small and fragile that had not moved in years. Luca turned to the designers. I want 6 dresses made for her, not altered from samples, made for her measurements, her comfort, and her choice. Camila stood so quickly that pain flashed through her knee. I don't need charity. Luca stepped closer but stopped before invading her space. Good, because this is payment. For saving your life? For reminding everyone in that ballroom that dignity is not reserved for the wealthy. Before Camila could answer, a guard entered and handed Luca a phone. On the screen was security footage from the service corridor. A hooded figure had cut the cable, then slipped an envelope into Camila's sewing bag. Luca opened the bag and found a photograph of Camila leaving her apartment that morning. Across her face, written in red ink, were 6 words. Stay away from Luca Moretti, or die. Who took this photograph? Camila asked, staring at the red words across her face while the private dressing suite seemed to shrink around her. Luca did not answer immediately. His thumb moved once across the edge of the photograph, the only sign that his control had cracked. Someone who knew you would be here tonight, he said, and someone close enough to place it in your bag. Camila looked toward the door, where 2 guards now blocked the hallway. The golden room that had felt warm moments earlier suddenly felt like a cage. I'm leaving. Luca stepped between her and the exit, not touching her, but impossible to ignore. You would not make it to the elevator. Then move your guards. The person threatening you may already know where you live. His voice remained low, yet every word landed with frightening certainty. Camila's face lost colour. Her mother was alone in their apartment in Queens, recovering from heart surgery with only a neighbour checking on her. My mother. Luca turned to his security chief. Send a medical team and 6 trusted men to Mrs. Elena Reyes. Move her to the Moretti clinic under a different name. Camila caught his sleeve before he could turn away. You cannot just take my mother somewhere. Luca looked down at her hand, then into her frightened eyes. Call her yourself. Let her choose. The answer surprised her, but not as much as the fact that he handed over his private phone without hesitation. Elena agreed only after Camila explained the danger, and within minutes, Luca received confirmation that his team was already on the way. Camila gave the phone back with trembling fingers. Why would anyone threaten me because of you? We met less than an hour ago. That is what I intend to learn. Before he could say more, Vanessa stepped forward. This is absurd. She probably wrote the message herself. Camila turned slowly. Vanessa stood beneath the soft lamps in a silver gown worth more than Camila earned in a year, her expression carefully arranged into concern. Why would I threaten myself? Camila asked. Attention, money, access to Luca. Vanessa's gaze swept over her navy dress with open contempt. Women have done worse for less. Luca's face hardened. Leave. Vanessa stared at him. You cannot be serious. You accused the woman who saved my life of staging a death threat. Leave before I have security remove you. Her smile vanished. Our engagement announcement is scheduled before midnight. The room went silent. Camila's eyes shifted to Luca. Something sharp and humiliating twisted inside her, though she had no right to feel betrayed. Luca looked at Vanessa as if she had exposed a secret he despised. There is no engagement. There is an agreement between our families, Vanessa snapped. Your alliance with my father depends on it. Business agreements do not decide whom I marry. Then tell her why 6 dresses are being made, Vanessa said, pointing at Camila. Tell her you dress every temporary woman you feel sorry for. Camila stepped back as if struck. She had spent years recognizing pity before it was spoken, and suddenly Luca's kindness felt dangerously close to it. She lifted her coat from the chair and pulled it around herself. I should go. Luca's expression changed when he saw her hiding again. Camila, look at me. I don't belong in your family war. This threat made it your war before I knew your name. And those dresses, she asked, were they kindness, payment, or a way to make me look acceptable beside you? Luca's gaze held hers. They were meant to fit you, not change you. His answer was immediate, but before Camila could respond, the agency manager burst into the room with 2 hotel officers. He held a velvet jewelry case in one hand. We found Mrs. Caldwell's missing diamond bracelet in Miss Rise's locker. Camila froze. That's impossible. The manager opened the case, revealing a bracelet worth nearly $200,000. We also checked her employment records. She owes significant medical debt. Vanessa folded her arms, satisfaction flickering behind her eyes. There is your motive. One officer reached for Camila, but Luca moved in front of her so quickly that the man stopped. Touch her without proof, Luca said, and you will spend the rest of the night explaining yourself to my attorneys. Camila stared at the bracelet. I never opened that locker after arriving. Luca looked toward the security screen. Show me the footage. The hotel technician hesitated. The camera covering the staff lockers went offline for 11 minutes. Exactly long enough to frame her, Luca said. Vanessa scoffed. Or exactly long enough for her to steal it. Mrs. Caldwell entered before Luca could answer, now wearing the emerald gown Camila had repaired. That bracelet was not stolen, the elderly woman said. I gave it to someone for safekeeping. Every face turned toward her. To whom? Luca asked. Mrs. Caldwell pointed at Vanessa. To her. Vanessa went pale. Then the lights went out. In the darkness, Camila felt a hand seize her wrist and pull her toward the service door. She screamed Luca's name, but a cloth covered her mouth before she could finish. When the emergency lights flickered on 3 seconds later, Luca stood beside an empty chair, Camila's black coat lying at his feet, and Vanessa was gone too. "Find her before midnight," Luca said, and every guard in the ballroom understood that failure was not an option. He stood over Camila's abandoned coat while security teams sealed the hotel, reviewed every exit, and searched the service tunnels beneath the building. The emergency blackout had lasted 3 seconds, but the kidnappers had prepared for every one of them. A laundry cart had left through the underground loading dock moments before the doors were locked, carrying 2 unconscious women beneath white tablecloths. 30 minutes later, Camila woke on the floor of an abandoned garment factory near the Brooklyn waterfront. Rain struck the broken windows, rusted sewing machines stood beneath hanging bulbs, and her wrists were secured to a metal chair. Vanessa sat several feet away, bound and trembling, her silver gown stained with dust. "You helped them," Camila said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Vanessa's eyes filled with panic. "I planted the bracelet, but I did not arrange this." "Why should I believe you?" "Because the men who brought us here work for Adrian Moretti." Camila recognized the name. Adrian was Luca's cousin and underboss, the man newspapers described as his most loyal advisor. Vanessa swallowed hard. "My father promised Adrian control of the Vale shipping routes if he removed Luca before their alliance vote at midnight. The engagement was never about marriage. It was designed to place my family close enough to study Luca's security." "And you agreed?" "I agreed to embarrass you and make Luca doubt you. I thought they would send you home." Shame crossed Vanessa's face. "I did not know they planned to kill anyone." A steel door opened before Camila could answer. Adrian Moretti entered wearing a dark overcoat, accompanied by the agency manager and 2 armed men. He looked enough like Luca to share the family name, but there was no restraint in his smile. "Miss Reyes," he said, placing her sewing bag on a cutting table, "your father caused my family 5 years of inconvenience." Camila's breath caught. "My father was a tailor. Rafael Reyes repaired clothing for powerful men. Powerful men often speak freely around people they consider invisible." Adrian emptied the sewing bag, scattering needles, thread, and fabric chalk across the table. "The night Luca's brother was betrayed, your father overheard the truth. Adrian Moretti arranged the ambush, then forged evidence blaming Luca's fiancée. Rafael recorded a conversation that could prove everything." Camila stared at him. "My father died in a car accident." "Your father died because he refused to surrender that recording." The words struck harder than any insult Camila had endured. Her father had been gone for 4 years, leaving behind unanswered questions, a small wooden sewing case, and a warning her mother had never explained. Never trust a man who fears what the quiet people hear. Adrian lifted the old pincushion from her bag. "Where is the drive?" "I don't know." He stepped closer. "Your mother gave you this case after Rafael's funeral. Do not insult me." Across the room, Vanessa began crying. Camila looked at her, then at the loose thread hanging from the hem of her silver gown. Hidden inside Camila's sleeve was the thin needle she always carried for emergencies. She bent her wrist carefully and began cutting through the plastic restraint, 1 strand at a time. "Even if I had your evidence," Camila said, keeping Adrian's attention on her, "Luca would never believe me." Adrian smiled. "He delayed his own gala, threatened an alliance, and sent 6 men to protect your mother after knowing you for less than an hour. Luca already believes you more than he believes his own blood." The restraint loosened. Adrian turned toward the cutting table and broke open the pincushion. It was empty. Camila suddenly remembered repairing its torn base that morning. Beneath the stuffing, she had found a small black object and mistaken it for part of the wooden frame. She had placed it inside the lining of her navy dress so it would not be lost. The drive was against her ribs. Before Adrian turned back, Camila freed one hand, grabbed a pair of fabric scissors and cut Vanessa's restraint. "Run when I tell you," she whispered. Vanessa stared at her. "After what I did, why would you help me?" "Because cruelty does not become right when it happens to someone cruel." Camila pulled the fire alarm. Bells erupted through the factory. Red lights flashed, and Vanessa kicked the cutting table into one of the guards. Camila ran toward the rear exit, but Adrian caught her injured wrist and dragged her back. She cried out, and the drive slipped from the lining of her dress onto the floor. Everyone froze. Adrian reached for it, but the factory doors crashed open. Luca entered through the rain with his guards behind him, his face colder than Camila had ever seen. Adrian pulled Camila against his chest and raised a weapon near her shoulder. Luca stopped instantly. "Let her go." "Choose carefully, cousin," Adrian said. "Your empire or the woman who has known you for one night." Camila saw Luca's gaze drop to the bruise forming around her wrist. Something dangerous moved behind his eyes, but when he spoke to her, his voice became gentle. "Camila, look at me. You are leaving this room." "The drive," she whispered. "It proves Adrian killed your brother." Luca did not look away from her. "Then the Empire can wait." Adrian tightened his grip, but Vanessa suddenly shoved him from behind. Camila broke free as a shot struck a hanging light, plunging half the factory into darkness. Luca reached her, removed his coat, and wrapped it around her shoulders before checking his own safety. "I told you," Camila said through shaking breaths, "I will not be treated like something fragile." Luca knelt beside her and loosened the restraint still cutting into her wrist. "You are not fragile," he said. "You are the bravest person in this room." Then the factory's old projector switched on by itself. Across the stained wall appeared Rafael Reyes, Camila's father, speaking into a hidden camera. Behind him stood a younger Adrian Moretti, confessing to a betrayal that had destroyed Luca's family. But the final person who stepped into the recording made Luca rise slowly, because she was someone he had believed dead for 5 years. The woman on the factory wall was Sofia Bellini, Luca's former fiancée, the woman accused of betraying his brother and presumed dead after her car plunged into the Hudson River 5 years earlier. In the recording, Sofia stood beside Adrian with tears on her face, while he admitted that he had forced her to lure Matteo Moretti into an ambush. Rafael Reyes remained behind the hidden camera, capturing every word. "You promised my sister would live," Sofia said in the footage. Adrian only smiled. "Promises are useful until they become expensive." The video ended with Rafael whispering that he would make 3 copies before the screen went black. Luca stared at the empty wall, his face carved from grief and fury. For 5 years, he had hated a woman who had been another victim. For 5 years, Adrian had stood beside him at funerals, family meetings, and Sunday dinners while carrying the blood of Luca's brother on his hands. Adrian lunged for the drive, but Camila kicked it beneath an overturned sewing machine. One of Luca's guards tackled him before he could reach it. Vanessa rushed toward the rear exit, only to stop when the agency manager blocked her path with a weapon. "No witnesses," he said. Camila grabbed a heavy roll of fabric from the cutting table and shoved it into his knees. He fell, and Vanessa knocked the weapon away with the heel of her silver shoe. "That was for the bracelet," Camila said, breathing hard. Vanessa looked ashamed. "I deserved that." "Later," Camila replied. "Survive first." A guard recovered the drive as Luca approached Adrian, but Adrian laughed from the floor. "You think one recording saves your empire? The family council is voting at midnight. By now they have been told you abandoned the alliance for a temporary seamstress." Luca looked at his watch. 11:43. 17 minutes remained before control of the Moretti organization could be transferred to Adrian under an emergency loyalty clause. "Then we attend the vote," Luca said. He turned to Camila. "You are going somewhere safe." She tightened his coat around her shoulders. "No. Adrian's people will target you again. They already killed my father for this evidence. I will not hide while they rewrite what he died protecting." So Luca stepped closer, rainwater still running from his hair onto the collar of his suit. "Camila, this room proved how far they will go, and it proved I am not helpless." Her voice shook, but she did not lower it. "You said I was brave. Do not call me brave and then deny me a choice." The factory fell silent. Luca's gaze softened in the smallest, rarest way. "Stay beside me," he said. "Not behind me." 12 minutes later, black vehicles swept beneath the awning of the Moretti Grand Hotel. The ballroom had been transformed into a family council chamber, with elders seated beneath crystal chandeliers and armed guards lining the walls. Guests had been removed, but the midnight auction clock still glowed above the stage. 11:57. Camila entered beside Luca, wearing the torn navy dress and his charcoal coat. Every face turned toward her. Some showed confusion, others contempt. Vanessa followed under guard, prepared to testify against her father. Adrian was brought in last, his hands restrained, but his smile remained confident. "Luca has endangered the alliance for a stranger," Adrian announced. "He left this council during a crisis because a woman manipulated him." Murmurs spread across the room. Camila felt the old instinct to close the coat and disappear, but Luca reached for her hand without pulling her forward. He waited until she chose to take it. "Her name is Camila Reyes," he said. "Her father died protecting this family from the traitor standing before you." A screen descended behind the stage. The footage began to play, but after 10 seconds the image dissolved into static. Adrian laughed. "A damaged file proves nothing." Camila's heart dropped. Then she remembered Raphael's words from the recording. 3 copies. She opened her sewing bag and searched the wooden case. Her fingers found a tiny raised edge beneath the velvet lining. She tore it open and discovered a second drive stitched inside the base. "My father was a tailor," she said, holding it up. He knew the safest secret was the one hidden in plain sight. The complete confession filled the screens around the ballroom. Council members rose in outrage. Vanessa testified that her father had financed the ambush, and Mrs. Caldwell revealed that Adrian had used her charity shipments to move weapons through the harbour. With 2 minutes remaining, the council revoked Adrian's claim and ordered his allies detained. Adrian's confidence finally broke. He tore free from one guard, seized the fallen weapon of another, and aimed directly at Camila. Luca moved in front of her as the shot rang out. His body jerked, and blood spread across his white shirt. Camila caught him before he hit the marble. Around them, guards dragged Adrian away while the clock struck midnight. Luca's eyes struggled to remain open as Camila pressed both hands against the wound. "Stay with me," she pleaded. He lifted one trembling hand and touched the edge of the coat around her shoulders. "The dresses," he whispered. "They were never meant to hide you." Then his hand fell, and the most feared man in New York went still in her arms. "Luca, open your eyes," Camila begged as blood spread beneath her hands and the midnight bells echoed through the ballroom. For one terrible second he did not move. Then his chest rose beneath her palms. "He has a pulse," the hotel physician shouted, dropping beside them as Luca's guards cleared a path. Camila refused to release him until the medical team lifted him onto a stretcher. Even unconscious, Luca's fingers remained tangled in the edge of the charcoal coat around her shoulders, as though some part of him was still keeping his promise to protect her. The bullet had entered below his shoulder and missed his heart by less than 2 inches. By dawn, surgeons at the Moretti clinic had stopped the bleeding, but no one could promise when he would wake. Camila sat beside his bed in the torn navy dress, her injured knee wrapped and her bruised wrist resting in her lap. She had been offered a private room, clean clothes and a car home, but she stayed. When Luca finally opened his eyes 18 hours later, the first thing he saw was Camila asleep in the chair with her hand inches from his. "You stayed," he whispered. She woke instantly and leaned toward him. "You stepped in front of a bullet." That was not an answer. Camila's eyes filled, but she smiled. "Yes, Luca, I stayed." He lifted his hand slowly. Instead of taking hers, he waited. Camila placed her fingers in his, and the feared Mafia Boss closed his eyes as though her touch had given him permission to rest. Over the next 3 weeks, the truth about Adrian's betrayal reached every Moretti ally. Adrian and the agency manager were arrested, the Val shipping agreement collapsed, and Vanessa testified against her father in exchange for protection. She apologized publicly to Camila without excuses. Camila did not offer immediate forgiveness, but she accepted the apology with dignity. Mrs. Caldwell created a scholarship in Raphael Reyes' name for working-class designers, while Luca ensured Elena Reyes received the medical care she needed without demanding gratitude or control. He offered Camila money for the evidence her father had preserved. She refused it. "Give me work," she said, "not charity." Luca did more than that. He placed her in charge of a new design studio inside the Moretti Grand Hotel, gave her authority to hire overlooked seamstresses and designers, and signed a contract that left every creative decision in her hands. On the evening of the studio's opening, Camila entered the same ballroom where she had once tried to disappear. Warm amber light replaced the harsh white glare she remembered. The room grew quiet, but this time no one laughed. She wore a deep sapphire dress created from her own design, fitted to honor every curve she had once hidden beneath oversized coats. It did not make her smaller, it made her visible. Luca waited near the staircase, his shoulders still healing beneath a black suit. 6 garment boxes stood behind him, each containing one of the dresses he had ordered on the night they met. Camila stopped in front of him. "You kept them. They belong to you. I thought you wanted to change the way I dressed." Luca shook his head. "I wanted the clothes to serve you instead of asking you to disappear inside them." He stepped closer, leaving enough distance for her to choose whether it remained. "But I was wrong about one thing." "What?" "I thought you needed someone powerful to protect you." His gaze moved to the studio bearing her father's name, then returned to her face. "You protected yourself, Vanessa, my family and me. What you needed was someone who would stand beside you while you did it." Camila felt the old shame rise for one final moment, whispering that a woman like her did not belong beside a man like Luca Moretti. Then she looked around the ballroom and saw her mother smiling, Mrs. Caldwell applauding, and young designers wearing clothes made for real bodies rather than impossible standards. She released the breath she had held for years. "Then stand beside me," she said. Luca offered his hand, and she took it. He led her to the center of the room, not behind him and not ahead as a symbol, but at his side as an equal. Before the entire Moretti family, Luca announced that Camila Reyes was not under his protection because she was weak. She was under his protection because anyone who threatened her threatened the future they were building together. Months later, beneath spring lights on the hotel rooftop, he asked her to marry him without an audience and without expectation. Camila said yes, only after making him promise that love would never become another kind of cage. Luca promised, and he kept that promise. The woman who once hid her curves became a designer who taught other women they never had to shrink to deserve beauty, respect, or love. The man who trusted no one learned that gentleness did not weaken his power, it gave that power a purpose. Their story began with humiliation, danger, and a coat pulled tightly around a wounded heart. It ended with Camila standing in the light, wearing a dress made for her body, and a love that never asked her to become anyone else. Would you have trusted Luca after only one night, or would you have walked away from his dangerous world? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of love, courage, protection, and healing.